Hey there! Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick reminder, if you're looking for tools, inspiration, or training to multiply disciples right where you are, head over to newgenerations.network. You'll also find a link in our show notes to join the community and connect with others on the same journey. And don't forget, you can listen to the Movement series and all our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Aila Tasse, and I'm honored to introduce this season of the Movement series. You're about to hear the story behind Cabbages in the Desert, a book that shares how God has moved in some of the most spiritually dry and difficult places on earth. These stories aren't just mine. They belong to a growing family of disciple makers who have said yes to Jesus in the face of real challenge and deep need. As you listen to each chapter being discussed, I hope you'll see that movements don't start with experts. They start with obedience. My prayer is that these episodes inspire you to believe that God can do something extraordinary right where you are.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, and thanks for joining us on the Movement series.
Great to be here.
Today, our mission really is to get into Chapter 2 of a fascinating book, Cabbages in the Desert, by Dr. Aila Tasse, that's pronounced Aila Tasse.
Right. And this chapter, Seeds of Disciple Making Take Root, it really digs into how this vision for multiplication started and actually thrived in some pretty unlikely places.
Exactly. We're talking indigenous movements, maybe redefining what church even means, and these sort of key moments of humility that just unleashed incredible growth.
It's powerful stuff. It definitely challenges some common assumptions.
It really does.
Yeah.
So think of this as your shortcut to getting informed on something that might just shift your own thinking. Okay, let's unpack this.
Sounds good. And Dr. Tasse's own story is, well, it's absolutely central to all of this. It really kicks off with a very personal call he felt.
Yeah, tell us about that. It was back in 94.
December 1994, yes. He gets this invitation to go minister to a small group of indigenous Christians way out in Moyal.
And this wasn't just like another speaking gig.
Not at all. It was a real turning point. It cemented his decision to become a dedicated disciple maker. He actually became the first pastor for this new group.
Wow, the first pastor. And his focus was pretty specific from the get-go, wasn't it?
Absolutely clear. He wanted to establish a church made up entirely of indigenous people, rooted right there.
And local context there in North Kenya near Ethiopia, that played a big part.
Oh, massively. You've got these deep historical, linguistic links across that border. So when local believers, people from the community, started embracing faith, well, it shifted perceptions.
How so?
Christianity stopped looking like something, distant and strange. It became relatable, something theirs. That local connection was just fundamental.
It sounds like he was already kind of prepped for this moment, though. He'd been involved in ministry before.
He had. Back in 1993, he'd co-founded Northern Kenya Revival Ministries. They were already doing mission trips, mostly during school holidays. There was this real passion for outreach already there.
And they saw some early success, I gather.
They did. A major breakthrough, actually, was seeing indigenous people enrolling in Bible school for the first time. That was huge.
But that created a gap.
Yeah, kind of unexpectedly. Key people left for studies, leaving a void in the ministry back home. So Aila often ended up traveling alone into these villages.
Right, and the book paints this picture of him on these livestock trucks.
Oh, yeah, moving at maybe 25 miles per hour through the desert.
It sounds incredibly tough.
It was. But that slow, difficult travel, it became this really important time for him. Time to dream, to pray specifically for the unreached people groups, the UPGs, in those really remote areas.
So solitude and prayer on a bumpy truck ride.
Pretty much. And that's where things get really interesting, because he started to see a flaw in their approach.
What was that? They seemed dedicated.
They were great at outreach, getting those initial decisions for Christ. But Aila realized they weren't really prioritizing the crucial next steps.
Which were?
Making actual disciples, planting churches among those new believers, and, critically, raising up indigenous leaders from within. That wasn't happening systematically.
Okay. So that realization must have been a big driver for change.
It absolutely was. It became this core motivation to rethink everything.
So was there a specific moment, like a catalyst, that really shifted things into this new gear?
There was. It happened in 1998. Aila was teaching on the heart of God for the lost, and a student, just moved by the Spirit, stood up
and said
something like, "We can't just sit here listening. God is speaking. We need to do something about it."
Wow. It takes courage.
It does, and that challenge, it sparked a whole week of just prayer, nonstop prayer.
And what came out of that intense prayer time?
The Moyal August Mission. And incredibly, it's something that still continues today.
Still going. Amazing. It wasn't just like professional missionary.
No, that was the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It was ordinary believers, business people, civil servants mobilizing for these 1-month mission trips every August.
That's incredible buy-in. I read they raised their own support too.
They did. Food, other needs, everything. And the philosophy was powerful. Everyone plays a part either going or sending and praying. No one says, I can't.
That creates such deep ownership, doesn't it? So different from just funding something from afar.
Completely transformative. That self-sustainability, that shared purpose, it built serious momentum. Plus, they were smart about it.
How so?
Well, they had the annual August missions, but they also did these sending of spies trips in April.
Spies? Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, basically reconnaissance, surveying new areas, prayer walking, getting the lay of the land before the main mission. Strategic stuff.
And the results? Did it work?
The impact was undeniable. Churches planted through this started reaching UPGs right across the Kenya-Ethiopia border. It led to 6 rapidly growing branches of the church.
So this growth forced a rethink, not just a strategy, but maybe identity too, like Aila's own role.
Exactly. He began to see himself less as a traditional pastor and more as a catalyst for change, really leaning into that biblical idea of the priesthood of all believers.
Meaning everyone's called to minister, not just the ordained few.
Precisely. Empowering everybody. And that thinking even influenced their name.
Lifeway.
Lifeway, yeah. Based on John 14.6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It was a strategic choice.
Well, strategic.
To avoid the cultural allergy, as the book puts it, to the word Christian in some heavily Muslim or traditional areas, Lifeway was more accessible, less loaded.
Interesting. And he drew inspiration from historical figures, too.
Yes, people like Hudson Taylor, known for radical faith-based approaches. But that commitment also made him look critically at the kind of status quo mission approaches.
What problems did he see with those traditional ways?
Well, quite a few, actually. One big one was the health and wealth gospel that was popping up. It really distracted from genuine discipleship.
Focusing on material gain instead of spiritual growth.
Right. Then there were regions becoming inaccessible because of rising anti-Christian sentiment or groups.
Security challenges.
Definitely. Also, missions were often seen as this optional program, something specialists do, not the inherent lifestyle of every single believer.
That Sunday-Monday disconnect.
Exactly. And finally, sometimes the institutional church structures themselves seemed more focused on maintenance, keeping the building running, the programs going, rather than on active, outward-focused mission.
So the traditional models were often just too rigid, too resource-heavy, maybe even culturally tone-deaf for the context.
That sums it up well. They treated mission like a separate department, not the heartbeat of faith.
Which must have been especially true for nomadic groups. Is that where this amazing phrase, church on the back of a camel, comes from?
That's exactly it. You can't expect nomads to come to a fixed building every Sunday, so the model had to be mobile.
How did they do that?
By equipping indigenous messengers with really simple, portable tools. Think hand-crank tape players for Bible stories, illustrated flip charts. The church literally moved with the people.
Adapting to their life, not forcing them into our structures.
Precisely. Which led to another really pivotal shift around 2007.
Okay, what happened then?
Lifeway officially changed its mission description. They moved from calling it a church planting movement to a disciple-making movement.
Okay, CPM to DMM. Sounds subtle, but what's the real difference?
It's actually huge. Church planting can sometimes just focus on the numbers, how many buildings, how many registered groups.
Counting structures.
Right. But disciple making, DMM, focuses on the DNA, the process. Are we making disciples who make disciples, like Jesus commanded in Matthew 28? It's about reproducible spiritual growth and outreach.
So process over structure, replication over registration.
You got it. And that shift in focus, it actually led to much greater acceptance and ultimately more fruit because it was about genuine life change that multiplied.
That makes a lot of sense. So with this DMM focus, how did Aila then define church in a practical way?
He kept it really simple, very functional. He defined it as a group of baptized believers with recognized leaders who regularly meet for worship, the ordinances.
Ordinances meaning baptism and communion.
Exactly. Fellowship, discovering God's will from his written word, prayer, supporting each other, and sharing their faith in the community.
So it's about what the group does, not what it looks like or where it meets.
Precisely. Function over form, building, or even size. And crucially, it included appointing elders from within that group, local leadership from the start.
Okay, so armed with this DMM clarity, this functional definition of church, then came a really huge goal, right?
Oh, yeah. Audacious is the word. In Addis Ababa, 2003, someone floated this, quote, crazy idea: planting 10,000 churches in the Horn of Africa by 2010.
10,000 in 7 years. Wow. I can see why Aila initially thought that was impossible without huge outside resources.
He was still thinking traditionally, but the breakthrough realization was the only way to hit that scale was by training indigenous people to plant churches themselves, not relying on pastors or outsiders.
Advancing the whole engine of growth.
Completely. And he got some external validation, too. A guy named Dave Hunt had seen Victor John's church planting movement in North India.
Right, another major movement.
Exactly. Hunt saw it firsthand and basically confirmed for Aila that these DMM principles could work on a massive scale.
But the really deep change for Aila, the internal one, happened later. On a flight.
Yeah, his let it go moment, as he calls it. It was 2005, on a plane. He felt the Holy Spirit really challenge him about his pride, specifically a prejudice he held against learning from Americans or any white person.
That's honest.
Very. He confessed that resistance right there and just committed to fully depending on God, letting go of his own strength and biases.
And that internal surrender, that humility.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
The results were, well, nothing short of supernatural. By 2009, just 4 years later, they counted 9,000 churches planted across East Africa.
9,000. Getting close to that crazy goal.
Unbelievably close. And many of these were already reproducing into the 4th or 5th generation churches, planting churches, planting churches.
Incredible multiplication.
Aila gives all the credit to God. He stresses that when you focus on multiplying disciples, the multiplication of groups, leaders, and churches just naturally follows. It gave real hope for reaching all the people groups in that generation.
It's a powerful lesson. And it makes you wonder if someone like Aila, with all his theological background, had to unlearn so much. Well, what about us?
That's a key point the book raises. It seems adopting DMM is often easier for people coming from other faith backgrounds.
Why is that?
Because they don't have years of ingrained Christian traditions or specific church patterns to unlearn. For pastors or longtime Christians stuck in traditional models, it can actually be much harder.
It requires real humility then, especially for leaders.
Immense humility. Aila had to shift from being the expert with all the answers to being a discoverer alongside the people he was discipling. Letting the Bible lead, facilitating discovery, not just lecturing.
Moving from expert to facilitator.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. And you wonder what paradigms might be holding you back in your own context.
It's a crucial question, which sets us up nicely for these catalyst stories in the chapter, showing how this actually looks on the ground.
Right, let's dig into those. First up is Ado, working in northern Kenya and Ethiopia among people from a different majority faith. How did he apply DMM?
Well, Ado really embraced it. He had that big mindset shift away from no building, no church, to understanding the church is people. That was foundational.
And practically, how did he start?
He learned to always begin with prayer, then focus on what they called access ministry.
Access ministry?
Yeah, finding natural ways to serve the community, build relationships, earn the right to be heard before directly sharing faith, building trust first.
And that idea of the person of peace.
Absolutely critical. Finding that person, described in Luke 10, who is open, welcoming, that person becomes the gateway to their family, their whole household, their network.
And often becomes the local leader.
Exactly. The person of peace often becomes the local DMM leader driving the multiplication forward. And for folks from that other faith background, they used a specific scripture journey.
Tailored for their context.
Yes. Starting often with Genesis creation, the fall to build a foundation, then moving into John to understand who Jesus is, his role, concepts like salvation by grace through faith, found in John 3.16.
And they often call themselves followers of Christ.
Yeah, because the term Christian could be a real barrier, a negative label in that context. Follower of Christ was less threatening, more descriptive of their actual experience.
Makes sense. So how did these individuals form a church?
Once you had maybe 4 or 5 of these Discovery Bible study groups, DBS groups come to faith, they'd start gathering together.
As a church.
As a church, defined by those core functions we talked about. Worship, word, prayer, fellowship, giving, sharing faith. Function, not form.
And this multiplied.
Massively. Reaching 8 generations deep in some places, each generation trained the next. It became self-sustaining.
How did the DBS work, especially for people who couldn't read?
Great question. For oral learners, they relied heavily on storytelling, reciting Bible stories multiple times, sometimes using drama, using audio Bibles where possible.
And the questions were key.
Crucial, simple questions like, what did you learn about God from this story? What will you do this week to obey what you learned? Who will you share this story or what you learned with? Fostering immediate application and sharing.
And leadership came from within.
Always. Identified and raised up organically from inside the groups after maybe 3 or 4 months of DBS. Not imposed from outside.
Ado apparently said something striking about preaching versus discovery.
He did something like, if someone puts a preacher up front, the fruit is 0. But everybody grows when they discover together. That shared discovery was powerful.
Were there challenges?
Of course. Secrecy was often needed, especially for women believers. Persecution was and is a reality for new converts, and Lifeway worked to support them through that.
And technology played a role eventually.
Yeah, especially post-COVID. They adapted using things like WhatsApp, Skype, Zoom for coaching, communication, sharing learnings across different groups. It actually helped cross-pollination.
Fascinating adaptation.
Okay,
let's shift to Ruth's story. She started in children's ministry.
That's right. But she felt this pull towards a greater purpose in DMM among unreached people groups. She ended up working with a really challenging group, mostly from another major faith, but also incorporating some folk religion practices.
And there was an unexpected opening.
Amazingly, yes. A local rebel leader actually gave permission for Christian outreach in some refugee camps nearby. His reasoning was basically, Christianity brings peace. Quite an endorsement.
Wow. So how did Ruth's teams gain access?
Similar to Ado, through meeting needs. They'd go into unchurched areas and simply ask, what are the community's biggest needs? Education came up often.
So they started schools.
Little children's schools, yeah. That became their access ministry. The local chief apparently first noticed them when his own kids started using English words they learned, like water.
That's practical.
Very.
Yeah.
They also helped introduce farming in areas that had fertile land but weren't using it effectively, even partnering with the UNHCR. It was holistic empowerment, building real trust.
And that led to some incredible stories, like the one about the witch doctor.
Oh, that's a powerful one. This witch doctor's son was critically ill. Some young boys from the DMM team prayed for him, and the boy was miraculously healed.
Seriously?
That's the story. And the impact. The witch doctor converted. He destroyed all his charms and paraphernalia.
Wow.
And then he started a Discovery Bible study group with his former clients. That group quickly became a church. And that man went on to lead about 15 other families from his community to faith.
That's just astounding. Shows the power of a transformed life.
It really does. And Ruth emphasizes, when someone quickly says, I'm a believer, that's not the end. That's where our work actually begins.
Meaning the discipleship journey.
Exactly. Guiding them through scripture, helping them build a solid foundation and relationship with Christ. It's not just about a quick decision.
And they adapted their methods too.
Yeah, using storytelling for oral learners, often using the national language as a kind of gateway for discussion, then maybe switching to tribal languages for deeper connection.
And women played a significant role.
Very much so, especially in Rwanda. There was a strong presence of women leaders. Often, government-supported cooperative savings programs called the Night of Women became natural places for DBS groups to form and thrive.
Interesting how different structures can be used. And COVID had an impact here too.
It did. In a way, it reinforced the DMM message. When traditional church buildings closed, it kind of forced believers to realize that God doesn't live in a special building.
The church can meet anywhere.
Exactly. And Ruth noted that within the DMM context, there wasn't the kind of division based on tribal origins that sometimes plagued traditional churches. The focus was just laser sharp, reach the lost.
That's a powerful unifying vision. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
This dive into chapter 2, it's really highlighted Dr. Tasse's journey and just how potent these DMM principles can be.
It's truly compelling seeing how that commitment to simple biblical ideas plus that willingness to let go of old ways led to literally thousands of churches.
It really is about transformed lives, empowering ordinary people, seeing those cabbages that life spring up even in the desert, as the title suggests. And here at the Deep Dive, we just want to help you get informed quickly, maybe spark some of those aha moments.
Absolutely. So maybe the question for you listening is, as you reflect on Aila's journey, his unlearning, his adapting, what's the provocative thought? perhaps it's. What unlearning might God be inviting you into right now? What assumptions or patterns might need shifting to bring more fruitfulness in your own life, your own context?
Something to definitely chew on. This has been the Deep Dive, part of the Movement series. We really hope you'll join us again next time as we unpack more insights into pattern.
Thank you for joining us for this journey through Cabbages in the desert. It means so much to me that you've taken time to listen, to reflect, and to lean into what God is doing through disciple-making movements. If these stories have stirred your heart, I want to encourage you, this isn't just a story from far away. This is an invitation. The same God who moved in the desert can move in your city, your community, your network. To get connected and take your next step, visit www.newgenerations.network. You don't need a title or a platform, just a willing heart.
Thanks for listening to the Movement series. To find more episodes and explore tools that help you multiply disciples, visit newgenerations.network. And be sure to check the show notes or our bio for a link to join the community. We'd love to connect with you. Finally, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. See you next time.